Next on Unsolved Mysteries, an investigator tracking a serial killer in New Hampshire gets a lead from a victim who got away.
You understand me?
When a young woman vanishes, police suspect that her husband knows much more than he's saying. A Korean man relocates his family to the U.S. hoping to build a better life. And then one day his wife leaves home to go shopping and never returns. And a man is separated from his father in one war and his son in another. Will he ever find them? These cases have twists and turns that you can hardly believe. I'm Dennis Farina. Join us. Claremont, New Hampshire. 17-year-old Bernice Courtemanche sets off for her boyfriend's house. She gets a ride from a stranger and is never seen again.
Can you hang on just a minute? There's this guy that keeps driving back and forth.
2 months later, 27-year-old Ellen Freed, a registered nurse, also from Claremont, calls her sister from a payphone. After that, she too vanishes.
Rather than stalking a particular victim, I don't believe any of these women themselves were pre-selected as victims. He selects sites, and he goes from site to site.
18 months later, the skeletal remains of Ellen Freed are found in a remote area near Claremont. Bernice's body would eventually be discovered in the same woods only 1 mile away. And then, a year later, the body of yet another young woman, Barbara Agnew, is found on a lonely hillside in Heartland, Vermont. A chilling pattern has revealed itself. When tracking a serial killer, authorities try to determine how he thinks, to anticipate when and where the killer might strike again. Even when there are several crimes that may offer several clues, it is a difficult task. Over a 9-year period, the bodies of several young women were discovered within a 50-mile radius along the New Hampshire-Vermont border. Police believe that 6 of them were abducted and taken to remote areas where they were all murdered. All of the victims had similar stab wounds, and police began to suspect they were all killed by the same person.
I'm wondering if you'd take a look through these reports and give us your opinion on whether or not
there were no witnesses and little physical evidence. Investigators were stumped. As a last resort, the New Hampshire State Police brought in a criminal psychologist, John Philpin, to develop a profile of the killer.
Police reports, autopsy photographs, every bit of information that would be available typically to the investigators, that's what I would begin with.
Profiling is something that you just, as from law enforcement standpoint, you have a belief in. It works. It's not so scientific that it is absolute. It's not going to tell you this is the individual, but it does give you the type of individual that you can be looking for.
I did make several trips out to the locations where Bernice and Ellen were killed. What could I hear? What could I smell? How could this very bizarre dance between 2 people, how could it have been choreographed in this space? How could it have happened? When I get to the point where I'm beginning to develop some feel for what is going on in the mind of a killer, I'll go back to the scenes, using what I have learned and simply going through what might have happened, just as though I were him.
I'll do anything you like.
What am I hearing then? Do I hear the noise of the river going by, or is that blocked out? Am I so focused on the activity of killing that I don't hear that? What does it tell me about this person's ability to perceive in terms of sound, in terms of what I'm feeling, in terms of what I'm able to see. Part of what goes on with this killer is that he has a very strong need to take these women away alive, during which time clearly he owns them. They are his to do with whatever he wishes.
Midnight, Winchester, New Hampshire. A 23-year-old woman, who we'll call Jane, was on her way home from a county fair when she stopped for a soft drink. It was a hot, muggy evening, and Jane was 7 months pregnant.
Does that phone work?
I don't know.
Okay, if you want to be that way. Come on.
What do you want?
Jane broke away from her attacker, but he caught up and stabbed her repeatedly.
He had walked all the way to his vehicle, and by this time I started getting up on my hands and knees. And when he was driving by me, he just looked right down at me. I could feel the blood rushing out of me. And I just kept telling myself, Jane, you're gonna die. That's all I could think of. And I just felt like I had to get to my friend's house to get help.
Jane had been stabbed and slashed a total of 18 times. She somehow managed to crawl back to her car and drive to a friend's house 2 miles away.
I was in shock, of course, so I'm really not sure how fast I was driving. But evidently pretty fast, because before I knew it, I was right behind him. And as I was behind him, all I could think about was he was gonna stop, or he was gonna turn around and follow me. He left me for dead. I know he left me for dead. No doubt about that.
When Jane finally reached the house, her attacker turned back. He stopped for a moment in front of the driveway, and then disappeared into the night. Miraculously, none of the stab wounds hit vital organs or Jane's 7-month-old fetus. 2 months later, she gave birth to a baby girl.
If you feel more comfortable with your eyes closed, if you choose to close your eyes.
Under hypnosis with John Philpin, Jane gave a graphic account of her terrifying ordeal.
From what Jane said during the hypnotic session, it became clear to me that she was not stalked. Her decision to go to the fair was a last-minute decision. She had no sense of anyone following her, either going to the fair, while she was at the fair, leaving the fair. She was able to supply very specific details of this man getting out of the car and coming up on the other side.
That phone working?
Hey, leave me alone! Leave me alone! Get away! Get away!
This man is very deliberate, very methodical, very calm. We know, especially from the graphic description that Jane provided for us, that he doesn't get rattled. What Jane described was a tremendous struggle, a tremendous amount of resistance on her part, the desire to protect her baby, but that at some point during the assault, it was as though she had done everything that she could do, and she couldn't do anymore. And she stopped struggling. And it was at that point that the assault stopped. It seemed as though the greater her resistance, the more determined he was. As soon as her resistance began to wane, the attack ended.
I'm coming up behind another car, and it's,
The license plate, Jane. Focus in.
662. It's too dirty. I can't see it.
That's a picture that you can hold. You can hold that picture.
After getting the description One of the things that we decided to do was see if we could identify this Jeep. In order to do that, we generated a computer printout of all registered Jeep Wagoneers matching the description that Jane had given us. Jane described it as between being a 75 to an 85.
Police narrowed the search to 1,350 Jeeps throughout New England. However, none of the leads led to a suspect.
I just feel really fortunate to be alive, but I just wish he could be found so it wouldn't happen to somebody else. Maybe they won't be so fortunate like I was to live.
Update. Jane now believes that she knows her attacker's identity. A private investigator came up with evidence pointing to a Vietnam veteran who later killed himself and his entire family in Florida. But DNA tests have so far been inconclusive. The murders of the women found along the New Hampshire-Vermont border remain unsolved. If you have any information about these crimes or the identity of the serial killer, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Next, the mysterious disappearance of a young woman. Some believe her 3-year-old child saw what happened to her. Christmas morning in Jacksonville, Florida. A young wife and mother, Bonnie Haim, opens presents with her son. Bonnie's husband, Michael, captures the moment forever on video. Less than 2 weeks later, Bonnie disappears. Police begin to suspect that Bonnie is dead, a victim of foul play. Their suspicions soon focus on Michael Haim. Among the most damning evidence is the extraordinary testimony of a surprising witness, Aaron, Michael and Bonnie's 3-year-old son. This case has fueled a startling family dispute. Contrary to what you might expect, Bonnie's own parents say that she willfully abandoned Michael, but some of Michael's relatives are equally convinced that he murdered Bonnie.
Bonnie, I'm sorry to say, is gone. She's not alive. If she was alive and had 1 ounce of life in her, she would have contacted someone.
There are thousands of women that leave their husbands and families every year. And it's always a complete surprise to their families.
Should have done by the end of the day. Okay, they need it back.
Michael worked as a manager in the construction supply company owned by his aunt, Evan, and her husband. Bonnie did their accounts.
Bonnie, let's go to lunch.
Evan claims that Michael was often abusive to Bonnie at the office.
Well, just go without me.
What is so important that you can't go to lunch?
Why?
Evan also says that at least once, Michael's abuse became physical.
One day they got into an argument and a fight in the parking lot. And she came in crying, and he had slammed her hand in the door and her nails were broke, and she was very upset at that point.
Bonnie decided to leave her husband. In preparation, she opened a bank account in her own name. To keep her plans secret, Bonnie had the bank statements mailed to her at work. Evan says Michael somehow found out and was furious.
Michael, what are you doing?
Why don't I know about this? We're married. This is our money. It should be in our account.
Well, it's from my paycheck.
Well, you're going to close it, and you're going to close it today. Do you understand me?
Bonnie closed the account. But friends say she never wavered in her plan to divorce Michael. She gave money to a friend for safekeeping, put down a deposit on her own apartment, and enrolled her son in a new preschool. On the evening she disappeared, Bonnie came home from work at about 7:30 p.m. She intended to drop by Evan's later to finalize plans for a friend's baby shower.
About 8:30 that evening, she called me on the phone.
Hi.
Listen, about tonight, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm really
She was
sorry.
crying, and she was upset.
Bonnie, is something the matter?
And I asked her if she wanted me to call her back. later, and she said no, that she would just talk to me in the morning.
Oh, actually not too good. I think I'm coming down with something.
But the next morning, neither Bonnie nor Michael showed up at work.
Well, she got mad at me last night and took off. I don't know where she's at.
Hopes for Bonnie's safe return began to fade that same morning. Her purse turned up only 5 miles from home, buried in a motel dumpster near the Jacksonville airport.
Robbery apparently was not a motive due to the amount of money and the credit cards being there. The purse was secured by the maintenance worker, and a police officer was called to the scene along with family members.
Does there appear to be anything missing from the purse?
No, it's all there, as far as I can tell.
Hi, John.
When I walked into the room, Mike and his dad were in there. Michael didn't say much about Bonnie being missing.
What the hell was Bonnie doing with all that money?
He didn't just come out and like, oh my God, my wife is gone, where is she? Just nothing.
From the start, Michael has insisted that he was not involved in his wife's disappearance. He says that Bonnie drove off alone after a heated argument at around 11 p.m.
Mom, thanks for
He stated that he called his mother, Carolyn Haim, and asked her to come over to the house in early morning hours and watch Aaron while he went and looked for Bonnie.
I won't be long.
You be careful.
According to Carol and Mike, he was gone approximately 45 minutes. Then after he allegedly did that, he returned to the house where he waited until the next morning, never calling the police, and called in and told his employer that he was going to be sick that day.
Detective Hinson wasn't buying it. He went back to the Jacksonville airport near the motel.
Herb, isn't that it?
And sure enough, there was Bonnie's car, abandoned in a parking lot.
What was unusual was the positioning of the driver's seat, which appeared to be farther back than would have been comfortable for Bonnie. It was more in relation to someone about Michael Haim's size.
Car's unlocked.
And after the vehicle was processed, we found a shoe print in the driver's side floorboard. It was a very pristine print.
Police believe that the print was made by the last person to drive the car. The distinctive tread pattern was traced to a rare style of athletic shoe. The exact pair was owned by none other than Michael Haim.
If it's his footprint, I'm not sure it means anything. My footprint is in my wife's car. That doesn't mean I have ever done her any harm.
Did you ever see your mommy sad?
Mm-hmm.
Was she okay or was she hurt?
Here's Hawk.
Next, investigators arranged for a child psychologist to interview Bonnie and Michael's son.
Did you see mommy get hurt?
Yes.
How did she get hurt?
They pushed her down.
From what Aaron told us that day, my only conclusion was that there had been a domestic fight and that Michael Haim had killed his wife and had removed her, and that their 3.5-year-old son, Aaron Haim, had witnessed this.
Can you show me where mommy was hurt? On her tummy?
The credibility of a child is something that you have to judge in perspective. He's said a couple of things that we know were not true. Mom's car is in the lake. We know her car wasn't there. No one has asked Aaron, why did you say Mom's car is at the bottom of the lake?
The issue of child witness credibility is always a concern, but generally, children do not lie about what they see, and they do not lie about what happens to them.
Custody of Bonnie and Michael's son was in question. Meanwhile, the families remained split about what, if anything, Michael knew about his wife's disappearance.
I'm not saying that I'm 100% convinced that Mike is innocent. I haven't seen any evidence that convinces me he's guilty. His behavior and general attitude convinces me that he's not guilty.
I think that Michael did something to Bonnie. I think Aaron was there, and I think he's seen exactly what happened. I think he witnessed his mother's murder.
Update. Bonnie has been declared legally dead, and a civil court found Michael Haim liable in her death. He was ordered to pay $26.3 million to his son and his wife's estate. There are new developments in this case. Here's one of our staff with details.
For years, investigators needed one more piece of the puzzle to solve the disappearance of Bonnie Haim. In 2015, workers were excavating a swimming pool at the Haims' former residence when they unearthed a human skull and other human remains. DNA tests confirmed they were Bonnie's. Michael Haim was arrested and will stand trial for her murder.
Coming up, a family's dream of a better life in America ends in tragedy. New York City has always promised the hope of a new start to immigrants like Soo-Young Kim and his wife, Soo-Ya. They came to the United States after their marriage in South Korea. Many who arrive in the United States work low-paying jobs until they can save enough to build a business of their own. And so it was for Soo-Young and Soo-Ya Kim. They were living the American dream, or so it seemed. Soo-Young and Soo-Ya had worked in flea markets until they were finally able to open 2 stores on their own. One was in Long Island and the other in Bushwick, a section of Brooklyn known for its ethnic diversity.
My wife and I were very nervous about our opening. We worked very hard from early in the morning till late at night 7 days a week. And we were blessed with fortune and happiness.
As the business grew, so did the Kim family. Soo-Ya and Soo-Young had 2 sons, and often the whole family could be found at the Brooklyn store.
10% discount for this.
The Kims eventually moved to a large apartment in Queens. There, just 5 days after they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, Soo-Ya left the boys with their grandmother while she went shopping. When Soo-Young came home at 8 p.m., his wife still had not returned from her shopping trip. He called all her friends, but no one knew where she was. Soo-Young found his wife's car still parked in the garage, its engine stone cold.
My wife had never been out that late for the 10 years of our marriage. I was getting more and more worried. I could not stop thinking that something bad must have happened to her. I stayed up all night waiting for her, but she did not return home.
The coroner gave us a call last evening.
The next day, Soo-Young was called to the medical examiner's office to identify a body.
I could not and did not want to believe what was going on. As soon as I recognized my wife's body, I felt everything was over. The whole world seemed to crush upon me. I could not think of anything else except my children.
Soo-Ya Kim had been stabbed 9 times. Her body was dumped in the Bed-Stuy section of Brooklyn, 7 miles from the Kim's apartment in Queens. Although her body was nude, there was no evidence of rape. Soo-Ya appeared to be the victim of random violence. But unlike many random crimes, this one had a witness. The body was discovered by Joe Jones, a security guard hired to patrol the area. Around 3 a.m., 10 hours after Soo-Ya had disappeared, Jones noticed a man behind the building.
Hey, yo, man, you can't dump there.
I can't dump here?
No, you can't dump here.
He like hesitated, a couple of seconds. Then he said, what if I give you $20? So I said, yeah, okay. So at that time when I'm taking the $20, I see that he had blood on him. So I said, I get blood on you like that.
I just got into a fight.
The man's demeanor made Jones suspicious. He got a brief glimpse of the license plate just before the car backed out.
He gets in the car, drive away, but he stops at the corner. I think he thought I was gonna go back and see what he put in the garbage. And I really got suspicious when he was looking at me and I was looking at him. So when I went back, I looked on the ground. I saw spots of blood going towards the garbage can.
Get that bag open.
Joe recruited a friend, and together they searched the dumpster. Under layers of debris, they saw a woman's hand. It was the body of Suya. They flagged down a passing ambulance, but it was too late. Suya had been dead for hours. Joe contacted the police and gave them a full description of the suspect and his car.
We ran all the Nissans that fit that description with that plate number in New York City, and we tried to match registered owners by using that partial plate. And we were able to come up with one match.
Could you do me a favor? Just go over your steps last night.
The vehicle was registered to a Taiwanese student at a Long Island college. She said that she had not driven it since about 10 o'clock the night before.
And what time did you get back in, man?
I come home 10.
There was no blood in or on the car. When police checked the engine, they found it had not been driven for hours.
There was a blue Nissan that fit the description that Mr. Jones told us. However, it wasn't the car. We don't believe it was the car at this time.
Police then began to look at their star witness, Joe Jones, as a suspect. They asked Jones to take a lie detector test, and he passed it with flying colors, and the police are positive that he had nothing to do with Suya's murder. For nearly 2 years, Soo Young Kim stayed in the United States, but the memories of his wife proved too painful. He eventually closed his businesses and returned to South Korea with his 2 boys.
I could not stand being in the store anymore because everything there reminds me of my wife. Now, there are no good memories for me here in America. Since it happened, I lost all my hope and dream. I have suffered so much. I'm still struggling hard to get over my wife's death for the sake of our children. I still truly love her and miss her.
The suspect is approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall. He has blonde hair and blue eyes and weighs between 130 and 140 pounds. If you have any information, please log on to our website at unsolved.com. Next, a woman is forced to give up her child for adoption. Decades later, they are reunited with the help of one of our viewers. Michelle Neal Arkin of Hoffman Estates, Illinois, has been searching for her birth mother for more than a decade.
Is there a Patricia Hensley Barner there?
Michelle was raised by Laverne and Wilbur Neal. They loved her as their own, but Michelle always suspected she was adopted. When she was 18, she learned the truth. Michelle's birth mother was a woman named Patricia Bonner. Michelle's father had died before she was even born. Patricia was unable to raise her 4 children alone, so she gave Michelle to the Neals.
Can I just hold her one more time, please?
Of course. I can understand what she did back then. I would just feel better just knowing where I came from, what my relatives, just simple, basic questions that any person would have.
Update. Michelle's search ended the very night of our broadcast. Her half-sister, Sandra, called our phone center with exciting news. Michelle's mother was living in Chicago, only 10 miles from Michelle. They were soon talking on the phone.
I could not believe it until I heard her voice. And she told me she was Michelle. And it was just, you don't know the feeling I had.
The following weekend at a hotel in Chicago, Patricia waited with her children for Michelle and her family to arrive.
I was really happy that she was so happy to see me.
Because that was one fear I had, that she wouldn't care, you know, that I was doing this all for nothing. But the fact that she was looking for me and I was looking for her just is unbelievable.
You want to meet your older brother, John?
Yes, the one I've been
John?
talking to?
Yes.
Well, hello.
In addition to her long-lost brother and sisters, Michelle also learned that she had 2 half-brothers and a half-sister.
I had no clue that I would ever have so many brothers and sisters, and the resemblance in my kids, you know, to them is just, it's unreal. It's shocking.
Michelle's adoptive parents were there too, happy that their daughter's search was finally over. The 2 families are now one. In a recent show, we profiled a man named John Nellis. Sadly, during World War II, John was separated from his father. And if that were not enough, years later, during the war in Vietnam, John was separated from his son. When John was only 5 years old, his father Melvin was ordered to return to the United States from his duty in China. Because his parents were not married, John and his Vietnamese mother were forced to stay behind. John never saw his father again. 19 years later, John had a son of his own. The boy, named Daniel, lived with his mother after she and John split up. As Saigon collapsed during the final hours of the Vietnam War, John Nellis was among the last to escape. In the chaos, Daniel, then 5 years old, was left behind.
If my father and my son watching me right now, I would like to tell them how much I miss them and I love them, and I like to reunite it and see them again.
Update. As a result of our broadcast, both of these mysteries have been solved. After John's story aired, he learned that his father was retired and living in Tokyo, Japan. And just 3 weeks later, he was reunited with his son, Daniel. They hadn't seen each other in 17 years.
For so many years, I miss him. I think of him all the time, and I'm so happy to see him. This is a real dream come true, and it's a miracle.
When I saw my dad, I was so excited and very happy. When I looked into his eyes and saw his family, I found happiness.
Daniel's first day in America was overwhelming. Not only did he reunite with his father, but he also met his stepmother and half-sister for the first time.
Now he's with me. I want to do my best, give him a good chance in life and a better future for him. And make up for what he has lost.
Come on, say cheese.
Next, the amazing life-saving power of a mother's intuition. As a young mother of 2, life was a blur of diapers and dishes for Carolyn Ebert. But she will remember one day in particular for the rest of her life.
It was in the evening. I was in the kitchen doing the dishes. My husband was down the hallway reading the newspaper. My daughter Monica was in there doing her homework, and Sarah, our little baby, was playing with her toys. And your mind is not really usually very far away from your children. You think about them. And this night, I was thinking about Sarah, and suddenly I had a feeling that there was something wrong. It was a very focused feeling, and in my mind I saw that she was choking on something. I didn't know what.
Sarah? Sarah?
Oh, poor baby.
Carolyn says that she sensed her 8-month-old daughter silently choking on a balloon.
You think about the what ifs. What if I hadn't listened? and just thought, well, I'll go in a few minutes. But this was not that sort of a feeling. This was, get there, you're needed.
Some call it mother's instinct, others ESP. The stories have been handed down for generations, and while this uncanny sixth sense may never be proven in a scientific lab, it is reported too often to be dismissed.
Hi, how many? 2, please.
Business had taken Elaine Emmy and a neighbor, Sharon Crocker, to Palm Springs, 110 miles from their homes in Los Angeles. They were just sitting down to eat when Elaine was overcome by a sense of dread about her 4-year-old son.
It was like being hit by a wave. It was a very powerful feeling, both emotionally and physically.
Sharon? Something's wrong.
What do you mean something's wrong?
Something's happened to Matt.
I knew something was wrong with Matt immediately. I mean, sometimes people get a strange sense that something's not right. It wasn't like that. It was a very definite feeling.
Elaine?
I'm gonna go call home. I'll be right back.
Elaine had instant panic. She wasn't what I would consider out of control, but just her mannerisms gave me the impression that she was very concerned and knew that there was something very wrong.
Elaine called home immediately, but there was no answer. Convinced that something terrible had happened, she phoned her friend Sharon's husband, Tom.
Hi, Tom. It's Elaine.
Elaine, where are you?
Tom hadn't heard from Elaine's husband or seen anything unusual at their house just across the street.
You haven't seen my husband or Matt, have you?
No.
So I said, well, then why don't we just have lunch? She said, no, there's something wrong. We need to go home.
I don't know.
And that's what we did.
I just can't get rid of this feeling that something awful's happened to Matt.
Twice during the trip back to Los Angeles, Elaine stopped to call home. Still, no one answered. It was the longest 3 hours of Elaine Emmy's life. When she and Sharon finally arrived home, Sharon's husband had some bad news. Matt was in the hospital.
Matt. Mom.
Oh, thank God you're here.
When Elaine arrived, Matt was being prepped for surgery to reattach severed tendons in his arm. He had fallen and crashed through a plate glass door at the very moment that sense of dread had swept across Elaine.
Matt's gonna do just fine, aren't you?
I was feeling what Matt was going through, no doubt about it. I'm not sure why I was able to feel that, but I know, without any doubt, what I was feeling and what I was experiencing. It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, thinking, oh my God, she actually did know that something was happening when it happened.
Again?
Elaine and her son had been separated by more than 100 miles, but it was as if she had seen the accident through her own eyes.
I think that this connection starts in the womb. I think even in the womb, some children and some mothers are more connected than others. And if they are really connected, of course, then it will continue for the rest of their lives.
If Elaine Emmy does have a psychic bond with her son, it only seems logical that it originated in the womb. However, many adoptive mothers have also reported similar experiences.
Simply the fact of having adopted a child doesn't mean the woman's divested of all her instincts. And I believe that women have instincts, a woman's intuition, whatever you want to call it.
Linda Babb and her husband Dirk, already the parents of 4, were looking to adopt for the second time. Linda says that at that point, she had the most incredible dream.
Now push real hard. Go ahead and push.
I saw a young woman, and she was in labor. A light-headed woman that was fair-complected. And I didn't know who this person was, but I did see that she was at the point of giving birth. And as she pushed, I saw the baby's head crown and then be born.
Beautiful, healthy baby boy.
He had lots of dark hair on his head, I remember that, and he was dark-complected. And at the moment that he was born and began to cry, I woke up from the dream. I felt startled because it was a very vivid and realistic dream. I had never had a dream so vivid. And I looked at my clock on my bedside table, and it was 2:59 in the morning on March 8th.
The next morning at breakfast, my wife said, "Sweetie, I've got the most incredible dream. I witnessed the birth of a child." And I said, "What child?" She said, "I don't know."
Linda, Dirk, I'm so glad you could make it.
6 weeks later, we had a call from our adoption agency. We had applied to adopt, and they called and asked us if we would be interested in adopting a baby boy.
Oh, here he is, and he is such a cutie boy.
When they brought the baby in, he looked to me like the most beautiful baby I had ever seen. He had beautiful golden brown skin and a head full of dark hair. He looked very much like the infant in my dream.
How old did you say he was?
6 weeks. Let me check that. Yes, he was born March 8th.
March 8th? What time?
Let's see, 2:59 a.m.
When she told me the baby had been born March 8th at 2:59 in the morning, I was stunned. For a moment, I was just speechless, and I turned to Dirk and I said, "That's the same time and the date of that dream I had."
I thought my wife really had seen the birth of this child with her mother. That was the dream. And it was confirmation to me at that time that this was meant to be.
Those two vibrations somehow meet each other, and it may happen once in 10,000 cases, and that's the one that we perhaps hear about. But that very special case just proves the fact that at least it can happen.
Sarah?
There is no rational explanation for these things, but just because there's no rational explanation for these things doesn't mean that it didn't happen.